855-839-1210 is the number here on the Matt Rooney Show this evening. And speaking about winning, regardless of the rules, whether they're fair or not, I was reading this particular article over at one of my favorite online news sites, the Federalist.com. I know you're familiar with it. And it was just, I thought that more than anything, this article, this op-ed captured the spirit that Republicans are going to have to carry forward both in 2023. We know there's consequential legislative elections in New Jersey. There's actually a particularly big election coming up just this week in Delaware County. I think it's in UPA. Voters will correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's the 163rd district. Republican Katie Ford taking on Democrat Heather Boyd. This could dictate control of the Pennsylvania State House. It's a big deal. Republicans, if they want to start winning some of these races, they need to change their outlook on vote by mail. I get it. And I've said this a million times, both here and at my website, SaveJersey.com. I find a way to vote, even though I'm busy every year. My parents, hardworking people, they both went to night school to make my brother and myself have a better life than they had. They still found a way to vote. I don't really buy this whole, boo-hoo, voting is hard thing. You figure it out if you care about your country. But these are the rules now. The Democrats have changed the game, and if Republicans want to win, they need to embrace vote by mail. And our first guest on tonight's program, Dr. Owen Lenihan, said it better than I could. Dr. Lenihan, just so you know, he's an independent researcher, investigative journalist. He has a pithy Twitter page, too. We always enjoy somebody that can mix humor and intelligence into politics, which is increasingly boorish, including on Twitter. His work has been featured on Al Jazeera, Fox News. He's written for The Federalist, The Post-Millennial, Daily Caller. He has a peer-reviewed paper, which I have to check out, a classification of Antifa Twitter accounts based on social network mapping and linguistic analysis. God, talk about a black hole, Dan. His brain had to hurt at the end of that one. There isn't enough Tylenol in the world to make me do that. But it was published in Social Network Analysis and Mining. So this is someone that obviously pays close attention to the details. And I think that as we head into primary season in both PA and New Jersey, he's someone that we should hear from. So without further ado, Dr. Owen Lenihan, welcome to the Matt Rooney Show. And I'm glad you're awake to join us. You're calling from Germany. It's what time over there?
It's just going on 1:25.
Oh,
but I got a cup of coffee here. I'm wide awake. I've been walking laps of the house to stay awake, fresh air. It's all good. Excited to be here.
This is a level of dedication producer Dan doesn't exhibit for this show, and he works here. So I have to give you all the thanks in the world for agreeing to join us. I love this article, and just so you know, everybody, it's called "Conservatives Get Busy Ballot Harvesting or Get Busy Losing," and this is the paragraph that you need to take away from this. If you don't take anything else away from this. Raging against an illegal election is cathartic, but it doesn't get to the root cause of Trump's loss. While voter fraud exists, the reality is that there was no massive election fraud. The DNC simply worked harder, played dirtier, bent every rule, and didn't care about what they looked as long as they won. It is a mentality that the Republican National Committee will have to adopt. In politics, it is better to be a dirty winner than a gracious loser. My first question, because in some areas of the right-leaning social media sphere, Owen, this is apostasy. What inspired you to write this article?
I think, particularly amongst Republicans and conservatives in general, we still have this very quaint idea of getting out the vote. You know, you got the pastor or you've got the pillar of the community who's going to bust the agent to the polls, and good on them. Do that. That's fantastic. Right. That's the backbone of democracy. But that's not how it works anymore. The DNC changed the game. Now, you talked about details there when you were introducing and just having an eye for details. Can I give you a couple that will maybe make your eyes pop a little bit here?
Absolutely.
So one of the issues, and we can get into whatever else about what is ballot harvesting in a moment, but everybody's probably heard about Zuckerbucks, right, that Mark Zuckerberg pumped. He pumped $420 million, nearly $500 million into the 2020 election. But it was extremely clever. It was extremely directed. Here's what he did. He funneled that money through several groups, but one of them, the Centre for Technology and Civic Life. The Centre for Technology and Civic Life, isn't that a nice name? Sounds so clean and so, bipartisan. But
right.
What they did, yeah, which it always is, right? But they funneled that money into essentially buying local elections, local election staff. They were able to pay poll workers. They were able to put new machines, new equipment into offices, and the key one being that they paid poll workers. And that's important because that gave a financial incentive between the electoral workers and tax-exempt groups, Zuckerberg. But here's the details I want to talk about. Zuckerberg's money, where did it go? It went into the key swing states, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Wisconsin, Michigan. So in Georgia alone, $45 million was pumped into shifting the vote, and 75% of counties where his money went, they shifted left. In Pennsylvania, where he spent $25 million, 90% of counties voted Biden. In Ohio, where he spent $8 million, 70% voted Biden, and so on and so on and so on. One of the issues we had after the 2020 election, when the dust was settling and people were saying, how on earth did this happen? How could Trump possibly lose? It had to be, Dominion. That made sense, right? Because we could say, okay, that's a big, big scandal. That's, but it wasn't. This is how they won. They won by targeting very specific swing states and putting a lot of money in the right place just to swing just a couple of 20,000 votes here or there, and that's what pushed him over the top.
And that is one of the most frustrating aspects of this. In your article, you go into detail that few have bothered. But I think it was clear to many of us early on after the 2020 elections thus began to settle that this Kraken theory that was being advanced by some, it was a big shiny object. It was a boogeyman that by railing against it made many feel better, but it was distracting from what I like to call the institutionalized fraud, things that maybe are a fraud in our system, but they're actually perfectly legal. And we see it happen in New Jersey. We see it happen in PA. And to your point, it clearly had a difference, either by shifting certain districts left or by ginning up Democrat turnout participation in places where they needed the votes. Why do you think Republicans continue to resist?
Could I just say it quickly, too, just to make it clearer for people as well, just to show, when I say it's not just these big sums of money being thrown about, but where did that money go? So that money went into paying poll workers, and those poll workers, so they're in your local polling office. As daily mail-in votes come in, they're able to go through this, they're able to see which way the election's going. Importantly, they're able to see who's messed up their vote, who hasn't filled out correctly. They're able to go then hand over documents to other activists or operatives, and they're able to go doorstep to doorstep, and they're able to engage in ballot curing. So they're able to say, "Hey, you screwed up your thing, your form here. Please fix this," and on you go. Whereas previously, that would be a spoiled vote. And there's a lot of them. They add up. Again, signature witnessing on the doorstep. They'll notice that who hasn't come out to vote. They're able to see what communities are Biden, who aren't coming out to vote. They're able to preemptively send out mail-in ballots and then go out and collect them and pick them up. So, again, this is where it goes back to the Republican idea of what's noble and fair. Noble and fair is a vote is a precious thing. You should, if you can't be bothered to come in and vote in person, should you even have a vote? But these people, what they're doing is they're paying people a lot of money to go out into communities where people traditionally don't vote, where it's maybe low information voters. They're basically filling out the voting form for them. Sign here, please, and they bring them back in mass numbers, and it has a huge effect.
We'd rather die on our hill than actually win the election and advance the ball down the field.
Yeah, you can't be noble anymore, this time around at least, right? Because, look, the Republicans
well, that's right, because if you win, then you can change the rules, and we can enact our noble ideas in law. But until then...
Correct. and they're doing good work there. I have to say, the Republican committee on the House administration, that Brian Style, sorry, I'm mangling his name, but he's doing good work there with this American Confidence in Elections Act, and he's trying to just bring in some basic. So I'm in Germany, right? The idea of this mass number of mail-in votes is unheard of here. Everybody just goes, yes, obviously you have an ID, obviously you go on the day to vote. That's just obvious. It's just, in the rest of the world, that's just a done thing. So for people here in Europe, it blows their mind that this isn't the done thing in America, the greatest power in the world, But it's, I think it's deliberately so. So the Republicans, they're just saying, listen, we just want to bring in with this ACE Act, we want a secure driver's license or identification documents. That way, we're making sure no non-citizens are voting. They want to provide every state with federal data on deaths and citizenship status so that every state can purge their voter rolls. Again, common sense stuff, even though it's been fought by certain Democrats. And again, they're setting up a commission basically for recommendation. That's all well and good, but none of that's going to be done in time for 2024. So at least, like you said, you got to fight dirty, and you're only matching what they already started. But for 2024, fight dirty, get in power, and then be the good guy. Then change the rules.
Do you have your finger on the pulse, I think, of where the Republican Party needs to be on this particular issue. Do you have any advice for Republican leaders, politicians, other commentators for how to begin to affect the culture change? Because that's really what we're talking about here, right? What we need to do isn't complicated to parse out. It's affecting a change among Republican voters, operatives, to put their grievance from 2020 behind them and do what they should do in order to actually advance the cause in 2024. Have you encountered any arguments you think are more effective than others?
So, you're very savvy. You're excellent on social media. I see that too. You see exactly what's happening. And I think you understand that there's a lot of Republicans who are really, really stuck on 2020 and that it was stolen, and they're disenchanted, and you believe that the voting isn't, maybe it doesn't work, essentially.
Right.
But it's a loser mentality. They're going to have to snap out of it, say it's lost, and guess what? You're going to lose again with that attitude. You're going to get your ass kicked. The biggest problem we have is that, and you touched on it there earlier, was that the dust even now hasn't fully settled. We haven't still fully disentangled the myths from the facts of what happened there. And the facts are very simple. Focus on Georgia, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Wisconsin, Michigan. We know that these billionaires, the Democrats, and mainly their billionaire donors, cheated. Well, it's legal, but cheating in spirit. We know that they harvested like crazy. So match them. I think the biggest thing the Republicans can do is get out of this, maybe this old-fashioned campaigning of, these great attack ads, this from the top down, kind of from candidate down. They need to engage the grassroots because the one thing Democrats have is enthusiastic youth on their side. Always. That's always going to be a given.
They do, and you mentioned engaging college Republicans, which is a former college Republican. Then I should have done more fun things in college, like go to Halloween parties. I was blissfully unaware of the idea that women went half naked to Halloween parties in college because I was always on a bus at some campaign event in Pennsylvania or elsewhere. So, there you go. Shows you what kind of experience I had. But that's, I think, a very valiant point. That's a very valid point you make. But also,
you have to engage this youth group, and you have to get boots on the ground, and it's as simple as that. And the Republican billionaire backers are super PACs, are going to have to match dollar for dollar what these guys are doing.
But to your point, it's about shifting our thinking too, right? Though, and I know we're coming up against a break here, but it's a very valid point. We spend so much money on persuasion, these ads that you watch on television, and they run nonstop to the point where they become white noise. The Democrats, it's not that they don't run ads, but they recognize that in 2024, this election that's coming up, how many people are truly persuadable? Really what you need is a targeted door-to-door approach to reach the people that we need to sway and get them to fill out that ballot.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. Owen, where can we find your work online? Action. Yes.
I suppose. Okay, you can find me on owenlenahan.com. That's my website. I
Right.
usually drop my articles and things there. But Twitter is probably, that's where I'm most active at the moment. So for your poor listeners, it's Owen, but not Owen. It's EOIN, Irish, Gaelic Irish. So Owen Lenahan. At Owen Lenahan, you can find me on Twitter.
And I appreciate the international flair you're lending to our program this evening. A guy with this awesome accent calling in from Germany. People are going to start to think, Dan, that we're cosmopolitan and we actually know what we're talking about.